very. Is this on? Yes. Thank you very much. My wife and I, as you know, we published this book, and we use for the cover Lahaina Jodo Mission because the book title is Japanese Buddhist Temple in Hawaii. This is Japanese Buddhist Temple. The coconut tree is in Hawaii. So the picture is perfect. So thank you, Hara Sensei, for this wonderful shot of the temple at Lahaina Jodo Mission with the coconut trees in front. The other picture we thought of using is your daibutsu right there, because that's very Japanese Buddhist, and in the back, the mountains of Maui. But I think some people are not going to recognize the mountain of Maui, but everybody will recognize coconut tree. So the temple is in Hawaii. My wife taught at the University of Hawaii as long as I did, and her field is the history of Japanese Buddhist art. And my field is history of Japanese religion. So we combine our specialties together. And then when we retired from the university in 2006, we decided to do a guidebook about all of the Buddhist temples in Hawaii. And we were surprised because there are 90 Buddhist temples in Hawaii. And it took us 3 years, and we visited everyone. So we visited all of you many years ago. And I want to thank you for your cooperation. We were really happy that all of the temples cooperated so much. And they let us take pictures, they let us go up on the altar and to answer our questions, many questions that we have. If you find any mistakes in the book, please tell us, because it was very difficult to get all the facts correct. But we really enjoyed visiting all of your temples, all of the different places, and we appreciate your cooperation. So when the book was published from University of Hawaii Press in October, we had planned on doing an exhibition of Japanese temples at the Japanese Cultural Center. And so that exhibition opened on December 1st. So the book came out and the exhibition opened, and all of this was part of our plan to try to highlight, to show to the people of Hawaii and visitors who come here what we have here in Hawaii in the way of Japanese Buddhist temples. So as you know, our plan today is I will talk, and then after my talk, we'll go to the Japanese Cultural Center, and we will go through the exhibition. And for that exhibition, again, all the temples were so generous in lending us things. We were so afraid to ask you to borrow Honen and Zendo. I don't think Narashiba Sensei will lend us Honen and Zendo. But we came and we said, can we borrow Honen and Zendo? He said, sure. So I'm sorry, Honen and Zendo not here today because they're at the Japanese Cultural Center. But after this, we'll go and see the exhibition. And everybody was, Izaki Sensei lent us many items, and so we were very happy to have your cooperation for this project. So what I'm going to do today is to just show you some slides about the temples in Hawaii. It covers all of the denominations, and many people belong to a temple for their whole life, and they come to one temple, but they don't go to other temples, and so they don't know what's in other temples, or they come to one temple and they look at the altar, but they don't really look at the details. Who is that, or what is that, or what is the meaning of this image. And so we wrote the book to try to explain what it is that you find, that people will find in a Buddhist temple. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to start with the outside, the architecture of the building. And in Hawaii we have, and this temple is a wonderful example of the kind of temple architecture style that developed here in Hawaii that is very unique to Hawaii. So there are 5 different architectural styles. The first one is just a converted house. This is old plantation house. This is when the Issei came to Hawaii from Japan. They don't have money, they're poor, they're working on the plant. They want to worship somehow, but they don't have a temple yet. And so it's just a house. So they use somebody's house and they make it into a temple and they meet there. Then, as they became more settled and they had more money, they would build temples in a very traditional Japanese style. And so if you look at the temples in this style, it looks like a temple in Japan. And they are building temples like temples were built in Japan. And then this traditional Japanese style was made very simple, simplified. And we have many temples in this simple, traditional Japanese style. But then this 4th style is really interesting. This is the one that's very unique to Hawaii. And the Jodo Mission Betsuin here is a really good example of what we call the Indian Western style. And this is really our own Hawaii style of building a Japanese Buddhist temple. And then finally, in the more modern time, we find temples that we call house of worship style. They're very, very plain, very practical, very functional. And there are 4 types. One looks like a regular house, another one looks like a warehouse, and then finally one that looks like a Christian church, and then finally a kind of a style that is, we call it Japanesque. Somebody asked me, is Japanesque an English word? I said, no, we made it up. And all it means is something like Nihon Teki, something like that. It kind of looks like Japanese. Okay, so these are the 5 architectural styles, and I'll show you some pictures that are examples of this. This is the first style, old plantation house. This is an old Daishido, Shingon Daishido in Na'alehu on the Big Island. And as you can see, it is all broken up. It's not used anymore. Old plantation style house. And what made it a temple was the inside, where you cut a hole in the wall. I think you've seen this style many times. And then you put a shelf, and here you could put the kohonzon and all the other items. And then now you have a temple. So you just cut a hole in the wall and make an altar, and that becomes a temple. So this is the plantation house style of a temple, although you can't really say it's a temple yet, but it's a place where people can gather and they can worship. We have an example. This is a Kailua Honganji, and this is an example of this style. This looks like just a regular house. If you didn't see the bell or if you didn't see the sign, you wouldn't know that it was a Buddhist temple because it looks like a house. So we still have examples of how ordinary house is turned into a temple. This is Hamakua Jodo Mission. when it was being dedicated. And you can see all the people are here, and the platform up here, and the arrow and the bow to celebrate the building of Hamakua Jodo Mission. This is the temple today. I tried to put in a lot of Jodo temples in my talk. So this is kind of a Jodo mission talk. Very traditional, a sloping roof. The entryway is from the sloping side of the roof, not from this side, but this side. And then there is a veranda, open veranda that goes all the way around the temple. It's a very traditional Japanese temple style. Another one, a very traditional style. Again, the roof slopes this way, and you enter from underneath the slope of the roof, and the veranda goes around, and it's very open, very square, and very, very much looks like a traditional Japanese Buddhist temple, like one that you might see in Japan. This is the simplified Japanese style. And see, the slope is this way, but you don't go in. Now you go in from this side, from the gable side of the roof, and then you put a porch. And again, if you look at the building from here, at the bottom, below the roof, it looks like an ordinary Hawaii building. There's no veranda, that porch that goes around the temple. The only thing that makes it look like the temple is the roof over here and the entryway with the beams over here. So now this is a simplified Japanese traditional temple style. This is the same simplified style. This is the Hana Hongaji on Maui. We gave a talk in Lahaina Hongaji a month ago and showed the picture of Hana. And all the Lahaina Hongaji members said, oh, there's a Hongaji in Hana? They didn't know that there's a Hongaji in Hana. But there is a Hongaji, only one family left who takes care. Again, you can see very plain building, but the roof makes it look like a temple, and the entryway makes it look like a temple. It has wonderful elephants that are carved. And I love the little paws of the elephant, like this. Very nice elephant carving on the temple. Now this is the Indian Western style. This is the Honpa Hongaji Betsurin on Pali Highway. This is the picture of the original building. As you can see, it was much smaller than what it is today. Today it's much bigger. It was expanded in the 1950s, and we call this the Indian Western style. Indian because of the stupas, which are supposed to remind people of Indian Buddhism, that Buddhism is not a Japanese religion, but is an international religion. Started in India, as you know, went to China, Japan, to Hawaii. And Bishop Imamura, whose statue is right here, in his diary he wrote, and he designed this building. He said, I do not want my temple to look like a Japanese Buddhist temple. And this is in 1918. You can see how progressive he was already. He's saying, this is Hawaii. This is America. We shouldn't build temples that look like temples in Japan. 1918. Now, of course, Bishop Imamura was part of that Meiji generation where they were looking to the West and they were becoming very progressive in their thinking. Bishop Imamura graduated from Keio University, and he studied with Fukuzawa Yukichi, the great modernizer, westernizer. And so he had very progressive ideas. And so he wanted his temple to look like a temple that would give a message. And the message is, this place, this temple, is for a religion that began in India. And so he put the stupas, which are the kind of architecture you find in Indian, Buddhist temples in India. And this reminds us that Buddhism came from India. And then he put these very classical Western columns. These are Greco-Roman, what you find in Greek architecture and Roman architecture. And so this does not look like a temple, a Japanese Buddhist temple. It's a very unique architecture. And then if you see these arches here, all of these arches, that is a style from Islamic architecture in India. As you know, in Indian history, there was a time when the kings and the rulers were Islamic. That was called the Mughal period. And these are called Mughal arches. And it's Islamic. And so we have, just on the outside, we have Indian Buddhist architecture. We have classical Western columns, Greece and Rome. And then we have Mughal Islamic features. So, it's beginning to look like something that you would find in Hawaii, where everything is mixed up. My wife calls this chop suey Buddhism, because it's all mixed up of the different elements. This is inside the Honpa Honganji Betsui, and you can see these arches. There's no traditional Dhamma like this here, but instead you have, these are the Islamic arches. And then you have the Western columns over here, and even way inside the Naiji, there are columns that are, you cannot see it too clearly, but the column right here is exactly like this column. Up here, there are Egyptian lotus, so very classically Western kind of architecture. And then over here, the doorway, this is classical Greek architecture. And we see this Greek architecture in other temples as well. And then, of course, you have, like temples here we have too, the pews, which are Christian influence, and the pulpit. And so now we have, Indian Buddhism, Mughal Islamic elements, and of course Japanese Buddhist elements. We have Christian elements, and this is so unique to Hawaii. This style was simplified, and there are many temples that have this Indian Western style, but much more simple. And so this is the Lahaina Honganji, and you have here the Indian stupas over here, and two wings. This is become very popular in Hawaii, where you build one tower over here, another tower over here, and then you have the classical Greek, Roman Greek columns, and these are very simplified Mughal Islamic arches. And so this style becomes very popular here in Hawaii, the simplified Indian Western style. This is the Onomu Honganji on the Big Island. People on the Big Island call this the spaceship temple because of this structure here. But this is a stupa, and here you see this is Greek. This is classical Greek architecture here with the roof like this and the beams coming out. And then of course the classical Greco-Roman Western columns. And now the Mughal arches become round. And Western churches, Christian churches, all have, or many of them have the round arches. And originally that came from Islamic Mughal architecture. This is the Soto Mission Betsuin here in Honolulu. And you can see the same elements, the Indian stupas, the classical Western columns, and this mobile Islamic arch. The current bishop, Komagata's grandfather, designed this building, and he and Bishop Imamura were very good friends, and so they shared the same idea that the temples in Hawaii should look different from the temples in Japan. Then, of course, the most famous temple of all is the Jodo Mission Betsui. And this is the one that has the most clear influence from Islam, from Islamic architecture, because it was patterned after the Taj Mahal in India, and the Taj Mahal is the most famous building in India, and is also an Islamic mosque. Many people come to Honolulu and they see this temple and they say, "Oh, I didn't know you had an Islamic mosque in Honolulu." And I tell them, "No, that's not an Islamic mosque, that's a Japanese Buddhist temple." And they're all very surprised because it looks like a mosque. What makes it look like an Islamic temple is the minarets. These are the prayer towers, and this kind of curve, the small curves over the archway. This is the Taj Mahal here, and you can see the minarets here, and you can see it's almost exactly the same here. The minaret here and the minaret here looks like the minaret. The minaret is the prayer tower in an Islamic mosque. And then, of course, you see this archway with all of the curves, which is this archway and all of the curves. So you can see the similarity between the Taj Mahal in India and the Jodo Mission Betsui here in Honolulu. Waluku Jodo Mission has the same Islamic arches over here, and I'm not sure if these are minarets or not. Maybe they're stupas, maybe they're minarets, but they definitely refer to India. And so the Waluku Jodo Mission also has that same Indian Western architectural style. Finally, the last style we just call the house of worship style. And the first example, this is Kahului Honganji, looks like a modern house in Hawaii. If you didn't see the mon over here, this could look like just any residential house in Hawaii. This is Kahului Jodo, and the other house of worship style, we call it the warehouse style because it was built out of Butler buildings. Butler was a company that made warehouses, and this is a Butler building. You can see the warehouse, except for the crest over here that says this is a Jodo temple. If you took that off, it would look like a commercial warehouse. And then this is Kapa'a Jodo Mission, and here again we have, if you took off the crest over here, this would look like a Christian church. It could look like a Baptist church or a Seventh-day Adventist church. Very plain lines, roof line, the pillars here, and then these type of windows that are found in many churches. So this is a kind of we call this the church style, and there are many examples of Buddhist temples that are built in this style. And finally, this is the Japanese style of modern architecture. This is the Higashi Honganji Betsuin here in Honolulu, and you have the karahafu, the curved beam over here. But all of this is made out of concrete. It's not wood, it's concrete, very modern. So these are the styles of temples we have here in Hawaii. And so it starts out very simple, and then very traditional Japanese, and then simplified Japanese, and then the Indian Western style, and now this modern style. So I don't have to tell you too much. I feel like something like what's the saying? Oshaka-sama ni seppo. I'm telling all of you all of this when you are the experts about all of this. But this is a typical layout for the Honganji, Jodo, Soto, and Tendai temples on the inside. Mainly that main image in the center, and on both sides are the patriarchs, or the founders of the denomination. So this is a Honganji temple, and so we have Shinran over here and Renyo over here. So the patriarchs will be different, of course, for Jodo and for Soto, and also for Tendai. There's the Maijo, the front altar table here, and then of course the incense bowl. So this is the basic layout for these types of temples. For Honganji, the patriarchs will be Shinran on the right side, Renyo on the left side. And the Gohonzon will be Amida. Really interesting thing is happening, I think, with Honganji temples. And we were actually talking about it at lunchtime, about the use of the Amida image. Because Honganji has a little bit problem with using the image of Amida. And it goes back to Renyo, maybe to Shinran himself, who said, you shouldn't use an image. Better than an image is a painting, but better than the painting is the Nembutsu. And that's what you should, worship. You shouldn't worship a statue of Amida. So it's been very interesting to go to Honganji temples and to talk about about Amida. And many Honganji members tell us that Amida is not a deity, not a god. And this is very confusing, I think. So if you go, what is Amida then? And they say, we're not sure what Amida is, but we don't worship the deity. We don't worship the statue of Amida. And I show this picture and I say, but look, Amida has curls, long earlobes, blue eyes. Say, Amida was a howler. He had blue eyes. And they say, where did that come from? And I say, it comes from the sutra. It comes from the Okyo. It describes Amida as eyes like the blue lotus, has the hair, the long earlobes, it has 3 rings on the neck. And the Honganji members are very uncomfortable to think of Amida as an image or a statue. And so they're moving more towards putting up just the Nembutsu instead of an image or statue of Amida. This one is in the Vihui Honganji in their social hall. This is not in their main temple, but in the social hall. And of course, for Jodo temples, the founders will be Honen on one side, and Shangao or Zendo on the right-hand side, and Han Konjiki, the half gold Shangao, because Honen had a dream, as you know, about Shangao. And the image, this is from Lahaina Jodo, the image doesn't have the rays of light like the Honganji Amida had. The Honganji Amida has the 48 rays of light representing the 48 vows, and the Jodo Amida has this background. This background here instead of the rays of light. And then for Soto, Dogen and Keizan as the founders, Dogen on the right side, Keizan on the left. And their Gohonzon is Shakyamuni. At least here in Hawaii, all the Soto temples have Shakyamuni as their main image. This is from the Soto Mission Betsu. And then Tendai, the journey or chigi, the Chinese patriarch, and then Saicho, the founder of Tendai in Japan, are the patriarchs who are on the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the main image. And for Tendai, as you know, the main image can be any number of Buddhas. Here, the Tendai mission of Hawaii, the Gohonzon is Yakushi. So, but it can be other kind of Buddhas as well. With Shingon and Tendai temples, there is also the Goma Dam, the Goma platform for the fire ritual, and both Shingon and Tendai have this very important part of the altar. And for Shingon temples, of course, the main image is Kobo Daishi or Odaishi-sama. Now, one of the interesting things about the Shingon temples in Hawaii is that every Shingon temple in Hawaii has as their Gohonzon Kobo Daishi. That's not true in Japan. In Japan, it might be Dainichi Nyorai, or it might be Fudo, or somebody else. But here in Hawaii, it's always Kobo Daishi. And that's because when Shingon came to Hawaii, it didn't come with ministers, Kaikyoshi coming to Hawaii, but it was just ordinary plantation workers. And they brought with them their belief in Kobo Daishi, and so Kobo Daishi became the main object of worship for Shingon believers here in Hawaii. And then later on, when they built their temples, they put Kobo Daishi as their main object of worship. This is from in Kona, on the Big Island. And then on the side of Kobo Daishi is in the center, and then on the side there are many other kinds of deities. They're not the patriarchs and the founders like we have in the other temples, but many other kinds of deities here. This is Koboji here in Honolulu, and we have many different kinds of Fudo and other kinds of deities as well. And so as you know, in Shingon Buddhism, there are many, many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, very crowded kind of altar that they have. Nichiren Buddhism, this is from the Nichiren Betsurin here. There is the image of Nichiren, and in front of him the 8 scrolls of the Lotus Sutra, the Hokekyo, and then in the back the Tahoto, the pagoda in the center with the Daimoku written on it, and then the 2 Buddhas on the side. This represents a scene from the Lotus Sutra. And then in the back is the main image, which is the Daimoku Mandala that has the Namu Myoho Renge Kyo written on it. This is Nichiren, and the 2 Buddhas, the Daimoku is over here, and this is the Daimoku Mandala with the names of all of the different Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that appear in the Lotus Sutra, but the main chant is Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And as you know, Nichiren Buddhism is very interesting for several reasons. One is, it's the only denomination that has the name of the founder. So Nichiren is the founder, and we call it Nichiren Buddhism. But the other thing is that the main image, the Gohonzon, is not a Buddha, it's not a Bodhisattva, but is a sutra. It's the Lotus Sutra. And so the Daimoku, the title of the Lotus Sutra, is what forms the main image of Nichiren temples. So there are many, many objects in every Buddhist temple, and here we have this is a Honpa Honganji incense burner from Wahewa Honganji, and this is a very common style with a mythical, I'm not sure exactly what it is, a lion, a dog, a mixture of different kind of animals on the top, and then for the handles, 2 dragons. One dragon has its mouth open because it's saying the letter A, and the other dragon has its mouth closed because they say mm. So this is the symbolism. And is the beginning of the Japanese syllabary, a, I, U, E, O, and then you come to the end. Is the last syllable of the Japanese syllabary. And it is also the first and the last sounds of the Sanskrit alphabet, a and And so the meaning of this is, I think you all know, but the meaning of it is when you say anything, you have to open your mouth. You have to say and then you can only complete what you're saying by closing your mouth. And so and represent the beginning and the end of all language. So whatever can be explained, whatever can be said, whatever can be written is represented by and And this symbolism of the open and closed mouth we find in many temples in all of the different denominations. Honganji members are very surprised that they have this symbolism, because usually it's associated with Mikkyo, with esoteric Buddhism. But it really is in every denomination we find this and This is Honpa Honganji candlestick, cranes, and we see the open mouth and the closed mouth. So I guess the candlestick, in most Honpa Honganji temples are always there, but people don't notice the details of what is on that candlestick. And here we tell them, look very carefully, and you will see that one bird has the mouth open, the other one closed, just like the dragon has its mouth open and closed in the symbolism. Most temples have beautiful Rama. Here we have a Rama with the Apsaras, or the heavenly maidens up here. This is a Honpa Honganji. You can see the bowl arches over here. And so, one of the things that we really enjoyed about going to temples is looking at everybody's Rama. Everybody has a different Rama. They're usually very beautiful, nice carving and nice painting. Some temples, like the Honpa Honganji Betsuin, and this one is another Honganji temple. This is Mahira Honganji. They do not have a Rama, but they have the Islamic arch again. Birds, often, I think you have flowers up here, but often there are birds. This is a phoenix. This is at Lahaina Honganji. Very beautiful. From the back of the temple, it's hard to see the colors, but if you go up close, you will see that the bird has very beautiful colors. At the Soto Mission Betsuin, their Dhamma has the story of Shakyamuni, how he meditated under the Bodhi tree, and how when he became enlightened, he began to preach. And so here we have Shakyamuni, he has become enlightened, and he is preaching in the deer park. And so we see the deer sitting by him, and the leaves of the Bodhi tree over him, the Dharma wheel behind him. So you can actually have some stories on the Rama. This is from Wailua Honganji, a very beautiful heavenly maiden offering a lotus flower. This is right here. Jodo Mission Betsuin, the canopy up here, has dragons, again with the open mouth and the closed mouth, the Ahum symbolism. This is, I think this is Pearl City, Honganji. We visited so many temples, I cannot remember which one we went to and where some of these pictures came from, but here again, it's a canopy like this one up here, except that it has a very beautiful painting of these kind of like angels, heavenly maidens. And of course, we have Lahaina Jodo Mission, beautiful painting, much more modern in style of a heavenly maiden. This is in your Nokotsudo, right? Yeah, in the pagoda, yeah. The other really beautiful piece of furniture in temples is the maijo, the front altar table. And this is from Wairuku Honganji. And most of the Honganji temples have the carvings of birds in the front of the temple. So this is a dragon, and these are birds of the Pure Land. And these birds are described in the Pure Land Sutras. You know, the Pure Land is a beautiful place. It has wonderful music. It has birds and flowers, and it's a very peaceful place. And so what the front altar table is illustrating is a little bit of what the Pure Land looks like. And of course, the Naijin, the inner sanctuary, is kind of the sacred area, the area representing the Pure Land. The Geijin, the outer sanctuary, this is the ordinary world. And the Naijin almost always is built up higher, like we have here, then the Geijin is just on the ground floor. So here there's a peacock with chrysanthemums. This is a close-up of the maijo, the birds of the Pure Land. This is very traditional crane and pine, symbol of longevity, long life. And this is a really interesting bird. In Sanskrit, it's called the jivaka bird, or the umyocho in Japanese. And it has two heads. And this one again has the two heads, one mouth open, one mouth closed, open. But then there's a wonderful story that goes with the two heads. So once there was a bird with two heads and one body. And one head was eating all the good fruit. And the other head became jealous of that first head eating all the good fruit. And so the second head said, I'm going to give him poison fruit. So he gave the first head poison fruit. That first head ate that poison fruit. And of course, because they have only one body, they all died. And so the lesson is, even if we have our differences, we must cooperate or we will die. And so we must work together even though we have our differences. So my wife and I think of these as, this is the Republicans and this is the Democrats, and they better work together or we're going to fall off the fiscal cliff and we are going to die, so please work together. So we've been thinking of sending this picture to Congress and tell them the story about the two heads that have to work together even though they have their differences. Dragons, of course, appear, all over the place. There are dragons underneath lanterns. This dragon is on the Maijoku, and dragons are very auspicious. Dragons represent water, rain, what we need for life, for growing our crops. This is at Honomu Shingo Mission. Soto Mission, Letsuin has a similar, maybe it's Mahiwa Soto Mission, has a similar Maijoku with the two dragons underneath, once again, open mouth, closed mouth, water. The dragons are associated with water. But then if you look carefully on this dragon, on the tail, there is the sword. And this is a reference to the story in India about Amaterasu and Susanoo, remember, brother and sister, and Susanoo, made a mess of Amaterasu's new palace, and so Amaterasu, threw him out, and Susanoo had to leave the heavenly kingdom of his sister Amaterasu, and then he was asked to kill a dragon, Orochi, the eight-headed dragon. And so he killed the dragon, and in the tail of the dragon, he found a sword. And so he gave the sword to Amaterasu, saying, "I'm sorry, I did all those bad things to you. Here is the sword." And so this sword became one of the imperial regalia, the Sanshu Jingi. And so this is a very important story about Amaterasu and Susanoo and about the beginnings of Japan. And so we have this wonderful story that is in this picture here of the sword coming out of the dragon's tail. And of course, the main image sits on the Shumidan, and Shumi refers to Mount Sumeru. And Mount Sumeru is the mountain that is in the center of the Buddhist universe, the Buddhist cosmology. And the scriptures, the sutras, describe Mount Sumeru as having being wide at the top, wide at the bottom, but pushed together, skinny in the center. And this is why the Shumidan looks like this, because the sutras describe Mount Sumeru as looking like this, kind of like what we would call an hourglass, wide on top and the bottom, and then pinched, squished together in the center. And then around the Shumidan, there's all kinds of decorations. This is from the Honganji Betsuin Shumidan. There are these wonderful lions, again, kind of mythical lions. And once again, open mouth and closed mouth, and they're very expressive. They show a lot of emotion. And if you go, most of the time you cannot see the Shumidan because the Maijobu is in front of it, so you cannot see it. But if you go behind the Maijobu, you will see the Shumidan, and there are all these wonderful animals. There are lions, there are tigers, there are birds, and all on the Shumidan, playing amongst the flowers. This one you should recognize, Meisho-in. Some temples have very rich kind of arrangement with lots of detail, hanging lanterns, of course, lanterns in the back, the Kuden here, and of course the incense burner, the bells, and the gold in the background. So very rich, very complicated. Shingon temples are even more complicated. There's so much that are packed into Shingon temples. And it's one of the things that makes temples so beautiful is all this gold and lacquer, and what it says is this is a different world. This is a special world. This is not the ordinary world of the Geijin. This is the world of the Pure Land. And it makes us think about something that is special, is beautiful and very rich and complex, but not always complex, because there are also temples that have altar areas that are very simple. Oh, and then on the Kuden, there are all kinds of carvings. This is from Kahuku Honganji. By the way, Kahuku Honganji is closing this month. At the end of this month, no more Kahuku Honganji. So in fact, right now, Minulani Honganji is taking all of the Maijoku, the Gokuden, and all of that. They're taking it out because the temple belongs to the city and county of Honolulu. And so everything from the inside is being taken out, right now as we speak. And this is a detail from the Kahuku altar shrine. Wonderful elephants, lions, and then a squirrel and grapes. really, again, detail that you don't normally see, but if you go up close, you can see all these wonderful kinds of animals that are decorated and carved on the kuda. This is one of our favorite temples. Which one is this? I have it in my notes. Is this the Kohala? I think it might be Kohala. I'm not sure, but it's a Which one? No, this is not Kurdistan. Oh, wait a minute. Is this Kurdistan? Yes. Yes, Kurdistan. Right. This is Kurdistan. It's so wonderful, wonderfully simple because it just has the roof. It's like it's floating. There's nothing fancy on the side. Just this floating roof over the Amida triad. And then Zendo and Ronen just on a scroll. So you have both the very rich and complex and also the very simple. Right, this is Kurdistan Jodo mission. This one is also very simple. This is the Hilo Higashi Honganji. And it doesn't have a Gokuden. It just has the canopy over here. Just has the statue of Amida. There's no shrine for Shinda, and then just a hanging scroll, just like at Kurdistan. Very simple Mayajoku, very simple Shubidan, and it looks very simple. What's really unusual about this temple here, the Hilo Higashi Honganji, is the pipe organ, and that makes us think about a Christian church because that's where we find pipe organ. So once again, here in Hawaii, we will find this mixture of Western elements along with Japanese Buddhist elements. One of the things that really interested us as we went around to all of the different temples was to look at the objects that were made in Hawaii, or maybe not made in Hawaii, but had some kind of a Hawaii or local theme or expression. This is Hamakua Jodo Mission, which I think you all know. The shrine is made of Hawaiian koa wood. You can see the curly koa right over here. Very beautiful local wood. And at Hamakua Jodo Mission, the Rama has this dragon that is carved out of local koa wood as well. And so, these were done by Issei craftsmen, carpenters, and they're doing this all themselves, not being done in Japan, but being done here in Hawaii. This is Kohala Jodo Mission, and again, a shrine that is made out of local koa. This is a painting of Dharma that was done by the minister, past minister of Waipahu Soto Mission. So here again, an example of some kind of art, Buddhist art, that was produced here in Hawaii. This is at Wailuku Honganji, and this is very traditional ceiling painting, but if you look carefully, you see anthuriums, you see orchids, hibiscus, night blooming cereus, bird of paradise, plumeria, all local Hawaiian flowers. This is at Kapa'a Honganji. It's the front of the altar platform. And while this painting was done in Japan, the subject, what is being shown here are local Hawaiian flowers. Again, you have the hanging heliconia, orchids, again, night blooming cereus, and here hibiscus. This is fudo. very popular image in Shingon Buddhism. And this was made here in Hawaii by Reverend Kawanishi of the Liliha Shingon Mission. And he made this all by himself. He used concrete and beads that he found here in Hawaii. And then you can't tell from this picture, but this eye has a flashlight bulb behind it. And there's a battery in the back. And when you connect the wires, the red light goes on from only one eye. So this was a Reverend Kawanishi's homemade fudo. This is from Ili Honganji altar cloths that are done in Hawaiian quilt pattern. This is breadfruit. And breadfruit, as you know, for Hawaiians was a very important food. So the breadfruit represents life. And then in the back is kukui nut. Kukui nut beads. And kukui nut oil was used for lamps by native Hawaiians. And so what you have here is light and life, which of course are the attributes of Amida Buddha. Amida is the Amida Buddha of light and life. And so in Hawaiian expression, the light is represented by the kukui nut. By the kukui nut, and then life represented by the breadfruit. Now, as you know, in Japan there are famous pilgrimage sites, the Shikoku pilgrimage, the Hachiju Hankasho, the 88 pilgrimage route, and the Saikoku Kanon pilgrimage route, 33 Kanon. And here in Hawaii, as in Japan too, there are miniature pilgrimage routes that have been built in many parts of the country. And here in Hawaii, we also have local pilgrimage routes. Shingon Mission on the Big Island, and it has the 88 Shikoku pilgrimage. It goes all the way across the back of their property, and you can do the pilgrimage just by going from one temple to the next temple to the next temple. And you know, you can do it in maybe half an hour. You can do the whole 88 pilgrimage route. We were talking about Hawaii, close to Koloa, and we were just talking about how they're building a new, very traditional style. Would you call it a temple? Hall of Compassion. Yeah, but very, very beautiful. They've been sending me pictures by email, so I've been watching this building go up. Very traditional Japanese style building being built. But there used to be a daishido over here in Hawaii. The daishido no longer exists, but the pilgrimage route exists. So there are 88 of these, and it's a very beautiful place. If you haven't been to Hawaii, it's a really beautiful spot. And you can take the route and just go back and forth, back and forth. And in each one, there is a statue or an image. So this is a miniature Shikoku pilgrimage. So this is on the island of Kauai. And then on the island of Kauai in Waimea, this is the Waimea Shingon Mission. There is also a Shikoku pilgrimage route. They go here, it goes over here, it goes all the way around the temple yard. Now, inside is a Buddha. They're all numbered, from 1 to 88. And inside there's a little statue or an image. And again, you can do the pilgrimage by just going from one to the next station, to the next station. But it's shaped like bullet shells. It's shaped like artillery shells. And the reason for this is that this is not only a miniature Shikoku pilgrimage route, but it is also a war memorial for the Nisei soldiers who died in World War II. And so it's both a war memorial as well as a pilgrimage route. And this here makes it very, very clear that this is dedicated to the souls of those soldiers who died in World War II. This is really a unique Hawaii insignia. This is from the Soto Mission Betsui. This inside mon is of Eiheiji, which is the temple associated with Dogen, one of the founders of Soto Zen. And then the outer one is the mon, or the crest, for Sojiji, which is associated with Keizan. So Dogen and Keizan are the two patriarchs of Soto Mission, Soto Zen in Japan. One is Eiheiji and the other is Sojiji. And the history of Eiheiji and Sojiji is that they're always fighting. They're always arguing. I have a friend who teaches at Komazawa University in Japan. Komazawa is a Soto Zen university. He said, you know, people say that we are Soto-shu, but it's not Soto-shu, it's Sodo-shu. always arguing, always fighting. So the current Bishop Komagata, his grandfather, the one who the temple, the Benzoin temple, he said again, this is Hawaii. This is Hawaii, and we're not going to have Eiheiji and Sojiji fighting. They're going to become one. And so he put the two mon together, one on top of the other. And this again, Bishop Komagata said, I think you can only see this in Hawaii. You cannot see this kind of combined mon in Japan. So we think of this as another kind of meme in Hawaii, or a local way of looking at the tradition, the Soto tradition, which always has arguments and fighting between the two main temples. And here in Hawaii, Bishop Komagata's grandfather, who was also a bishop, said, no, those two temples should be together. And finally, this is an emma from the Nichiren mission. This was 2010, the year of the tiger. And this emma came about from something that I was telling Bishop Imai, who has left now, he's back in Japan. But in 2010, the head of Nichiren Mission of Hawaii was Bishop Imai. And so I was telling him the story of what I used to tell my students at the University of Hawaii when I talk about mudra. You know, mudras are the hand gestures. You know, if you look at every Buddhist statue, there's the hand gesture, up, down. When you make gasho, that is a mudra. Hand gestures are very powerful. They're very important. We use them all the time. We say stop. We say come. We say good, bad. There's some other kind of hand gestures that I don't want to make because they're so powerful that they can insult people. You can make people mad just by a hand gesture. So as you know, here in Hawaii, this is a very popular gesture, right? What is this called? Shaka-san, right? Shaka from what? Shaka Muni Buddha. And what do we say? We say Shaka what? Shaka brother. Shaka brother. Where does brother come from? Buddha. Shaka brother is Shaka Muni Buddha. And this is the mudra for Shaka Muni Buddha. Hey, Shaka brother. So I used to tell this story. It's a joke, right? In my classes. But then one day I was reading the newspaper and they had an article about where did the Shaka sign come from? Was it from the former mayor of Fasi, who popularized it? Was it from the old Hawaiian man who at the hukilau in Laie was missing 3 fingers, and so when he waved, he'd go hi, like this? You know, where did the shaka sign come from? And I'm reading the newspaper and they're interviewing somebody, and this person says, Professor George Tanabe from the University of Hawaii said it comes from Shakyamuni Buddha. I better not tell that story anymore. It's catching up with me all my life, you know, all of the bad things I've been saying. So now, then I stop. I don't count my students. Oh, you know, this is Shaka Buddha. But I was telling Bishop Imai the story, you know, about how I used to do this. And he said, he said, this is the year of the tiger, and Nichiren Mission, we want to make our own Emma. And so we're going to make the tiger do the Shaka sign. And so that's how it came about. But this is a good example, again, of something locally made. We think of tradition as something that was always done in the past. We think that we have to continue tradition. But traditions that don't change die. Traditions have to always change. Again, we're talking about it at lunch, about how we have to get new members and how we have to get people who are not just Japanese or Japanese Americans. But our tradition is still so much in the temples. Our tradition is so much focused in on Japan and Japanese customs and traditions. They're very good traditions, they're very beautiful traditions. But for a lot of people who are not Japanese, you know, it doesn't have any meaning for them as they have for us. And so if we're trying to attract other people from the outside, or say just local people in general, we need to express Buddhism in more local ways, like maybe the Shaka sign, you know, just a small example. But when people, and by the way, this is very popular. They sold lots of Emma that year. I know because you know I'm an amateur woodworker. I like to make furniture. You see, I'm very traditional. My specialty is tansu. You know, I actually make tansu. But all of this wood I cut for the Nichiren Mission and gave it to them. And I said, you know, make all your Emma. And you know, Bishop might call them. We need more wood. What did I do? I gotta cut more wood and take the Nichiren Mission. But it was very popular that year because of the Shaka sign, and the local people they see that, they identify with that. So, that's that makes sense. Rather than to have just some other kind of a more traditional Buddhist symbol. So this is the great challenge, and this is my last slide. So I'm ending my talk, and then after this we can open it up for discussion, any questions or comments that you have. But as you know, this is the great challenge that we face for the future. All of our temples are going down in membership, and all of us are talking about and thinking about and trying to do some different things, something that will attract other members. At lunch we were talking about ways in which maybe you can attract tourists to our temples. And speaking of being a tourist, my wife and I went to Florence, Italy last year, and we were staying at a bed and breakfast, and there was another couple from the mainland. They were from Oregon, Chinese American. His wife was Japanese American, and then it's one of these coincidences. There we are in Florence, Italy, and we meet these two people, these Americans. So we start, talking. Oh, where are you from? And the man, Chinese American, was from the same hometown that my wife was from. And they didn't know each other, but they knew, many people in common. Oh, so Astoria, Oregon, oh my goodness, that's my hometown. I said, yeah, well, I was born and raised there too. And so it was a really wonderful meeting these two people. Now the wife was Japanese American, and she grew up in Portland, Oregon. She's very active with the Portland Honganji temple. You know, I know that the temples, the Buddhist temples on the mainland are also having a hard time, just like in Hawaii. You know, the members are going down, and, you know, they're struggling. So I asked this woman, I said, oh, Portland Honganji temple, you know, are you guys struggling? Are you having a hard time? She said, no, she said, we're booming. We have lots of members. I said, oh, really? Because I was really surprised to hear that. I said, oh, you know, who are these new people? He said, they're all Caucasians. They come from, you know, they're not Japanese. 80% of our temple is non-Japanese. So whenever we have bazaar, nobody knows how to make sushi. I said, oh, that's really interesting. And she said something that I'll never forget. I said, well, what's your secret? She said, well, we talked about it for many, many years. And we decided that we had to choose between Japanese tradition or Buddhism. Is this temple going to be about Japanese tradition, sushi and all of that? Or is it going to be about Buddhism? And she said, we chose Buddhism. So now we don't do Japanese tradition, we just talk about Buddhism. And the temple is booming. The fastest growing religion on the mainland is Buddhism. But not temple Buddhism. It's the kind of Buddhism that a lot of Americans like, which is meditation, which is finding peace of mind, which is getting involved with the environment, trying to build a more peaceful world. The emphasis is on peace because we have so much conflict in our society, as you know, as we're just watching over in Connecticut, this horrible tragedy of the kind of violence that is so much a part of American life. You know, we Americans are the most violent people on earth. We make war with everybody. You know, we go and we invade countries and we drop bombs. And, you know, we're the most warlike country in the history of the world. I mean, we have the technology to carry out the kind of war that can bring about, you know, great destruction. But even apart from all that military side, as you know, American life, maybe life in Japan and other places as well, full of stress. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's worried. And we have so much stress. And how do you find a more peaceful life? How do you find peace of mind? How do you calm yourself down in the middle of the day when there's so much to worry about, and so much pressure, and so much stress? And people are turning to Buddhism. They're turning to Buddhism. They're not turning to Japanese tradition, or Chinese tradition, or Vietnamese tradition. They're turning to Buddhism. So I think this is one of the areas that is a real challenge for us here in Hawaii, in Japanese Buddhist temples. And that is to somehow make it clear, like Bishop Imamura was doing. He said very clearly, 1918, he said, Buddhism is not a Japanese religion. It's a universal religion. It comes from India, went to China, now it's here. It goes to Japan, and now it's here in Hawaii. It is a universal religion. It applies to all people, all places, all cultures. But of course, we always put it in terms of a particular culture, Chinese Buddhism, or Japanese Buddhism, or Vietnamese Buddhism. And what we need to create, of course, is a kind of an American Buddhism. And we don't have that yet here in Hawaii. We need to create a Hawaii Buddhism, our own Buddhism, for our own people. And this is the great challenge, I think, that we face as we look into the future and trying to solve the problem of how it is that we are going to make these beautiful temples survive into the future and become a place where all of these pews can be filled with people, all kinds of people, because the people of Hawaii are again all mixed up. We're chop suey people, all mixed up. So we need to create a kind of a Buddhism that can appeal to more than just people who have a Japanese background. So I think the main in Hawaii part of what I showed you is maybe the most important part, in addition to the architecture of the Indian Western style. Because if we look at our own history of Buddhism here in Hawaii, we can see some examples, some ideas about how it is that we can try to make Buddhism become a religion that is much more important, that has a greater influence here in the state of Hawaii. So let me stop here, end it here, and we can open it up for this small group for questions